In Hollywood, power doesn't always look like a headline. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And those whispers, they're more dangerous than any scandal. Today, we're diving into one of the most silent yet savage takedowns we've ever seen. A story about identity theft, but not the kind you'd expect. Imagine this. You're one of the most respected human rights lawyers on the planet. You've fought for justice in war-torn nations, stood before the UN, built a reputation on truth and integrity. And then, one day, you find out someone is playing you in a movie you never agreed to, saying words you once spoke in pain, as if they were just lines in a script. This isn't fiction. This is real. And it happened to Amal Clooney, the person who tried to become her, Black Lively. Yes, the Blake Lively you know from red carpets, fashion campaigns, and feel-good films. But this time, she wasn't playing Serena Woodsen or a charming rom-com lead. She was aiming for prestige, for power, for a role that could have changed her career. Only problem? She tried to borrow someone else's life to do it. And George Clooney, he noticed. And when George Clooney notices, he doesn't shout, he doesn't post, he acts. Quietly. Calculated. And once he's done, there's no way back. This isn't just about one actress crossing a line. This is about what happens when Hollywood's most powerful man decides you've gone too far. Stay with me because in the next few minutes, you'll see how George Clooney pulled off a masterclass in silent revenge. How Blake Lively's biggest role became her biggest mistake. How one quote, one photo, and one woman's silence turned a rising star into a cautionary tale. And the best part? They never even had to say her name. It all started with a script, but not just any script. Hollywood insiders know the drill. Every awards season, a handful of unproduced gems float through the industry. Prestige projects that promise Oscars, Golden Globes, and legacy roles. These are the scripts that agents fight over, that directors reshuffle their calendars for. And one of them, Obsidian. Just the name alone had the town buzzing. A sharp, sleek legal drama built for awards, crafted for a star to shine in. No official synopsis was released, but those lucky enough to catch a glimpse described it as House of Cards meets The West Wing, centered on a powerful female lawyer navigating the highest levels of international law and diplomacy. The role? The counselor. A brilliant, unshakable, fiercely ethical figure. Someone who could stare down war criminals and hold her own at the UN. It was the kind of role actresses dream of. Complex, intellectual, emotionally charged. And when Blake Lively's name started circling the lead, most people were surprised, but intrigued. Black had been pushing for more serious roles. After years of being typecast as the glamorous blonde, she wanted depth, grit, respect. Obsidian was her shot. Or so she thought. At first, no one thought twice. Actors take inspiration from real people all the time. That's normal. But then, whispers started. A casting assistant saw the character breakdowns. A stylist caught the mood board, a speech coach noticed the cadence notes, and they all asked the same question. Is this Amal? Because the counselor wasn't just inspired by a lawyer. She was Amal Clooney, down to the details. The hair, the accent, the fashion. Even the case history of the character matched Amal's most public legal battles. And then someone saw the kicker. A scene in the script where Blake's character stands before a UN panel and delivers a monologue about choosing diplomacy over motherhood. That line, it wasn't fiction. It was a direct echo of what Amal Clooney said in 2016 during one of the most emotional speeches of her career. This wasn't an authorized story. It wasn't a biopic. Amal Clooney had never been contacted. She had no idea this was happening. And Blake? She never said it was about Amal. But she played it like it was. And that's when things started to unravel. You know how they say, don't poke the bear? Well, Blake didn't just poke. She walked into the den with a torch, because what she didn't know was that George Clooney was about to watch. It happened in London, a private screening room tucked away in a boutique hotel. Only a handful of people were there. No press, no social media leaks, just early preview footage of Obsidian. George wasn't there on official business. He wasn't producing, directing, or starring. He was simply asked to give some friendly notes to the director, an old contact from his Smokehouse Pictures days. A courtesy, nothing more. Or so they thought. The lights dimmed, the opening scene rolled. George leaned back, casual, relaxed, until it happened. 10 minutes in, Blake's character stepped forward, standing in a grand courtroom set designed to mirror the UN's Geneva headquarters. She began to speak. Sometimes, the choice between being a mother and being a voice for the voiceless is no choice at all. George froze. He hit pause, rewound, watched again. It wasn't just familiar. It was Amal's exact words, lifted directly from a 2016 UN panel where she spoke about her struggle to balance personal life and global responsibilities. George didn't finish the screening. He didn't shout. He didn't confront the room. He simply stood up and walked out. Then he made a call. But not to Blake. To the studio. To his legal team. Because when someone tries to play your wife without permission, it's not tribute. It's trespassing. What happened next wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was surgical. And it changed everything. The very next day, subtle changes started appearing in Hollywood's inner circles. Obsidian's working title was quietly changed in studio trackers. The director's name? Pulled from press kits. And then, a leaked email surfaced from inside the casting office. Remove Amalesque details. Keep Blake on board for now. The key word? For now. Blake's dream role wasn't dead, but it was wounded. What she didn't realize was that George wasn't just making legal threats. He was doing something far more effective, removing trust. And in Hollywood, when you lose trust, you don't get blacklisted. You get something worse. You get gray-listed. Unlike blacklists, which come with headlines and scandal, gray lists are invisible. They're subtle, unspoken. Your calls don't get returned. Your offers slow down. Producers pivot their projects. Directors reconsider. And Blake? She felt it. First, a major casting inquiry went cold. Then, a high-profile producer dropped out of her upcoming fashion biopic. And perhaps the most symbolic, a long-standing invitation to the Met Gala was rescinded. No press release, no drama, just silence. Why? Because word had spread through back channels. George Clooney didn't like what he saw. This wasn't personal anymore. It was business. And in Hollywood, when someone like George disengages, you're not just out of favor, you're forgotten. Weeks passed, Obsidian was being rewritten, the industry was whispering. And Blake, she was waiting for the storm to pass, but George Clooney wasn't done. See, George doesn't believe in loud feuds. He doesn't need viral Twitter threads or tabloid wars. He lets silence work for him. But sometimes, silence has a voice. It happened during a Hollywood roundtable interview. One of those rare, polished sit-downs where the biggest names in the business talk about legacy, craft, and the future of film. No one expected controversy. No one expected shade. And then came the question, do you believe image can be weaponized in Hollywood? George paused, smiled, and then dropped a line so sharp, so targeted it echoed across the industry. I've seen people model entire performances after someone they met once at a dinner party. It's not acting, it's mimicry. And if you're not careful, it becomes theft. He didn't say Blake's name, but he didn't have to. The table went silent. The internet went wild. Within hours, the phrase mimicry isn't acting was trending #1 on Twitter. Industry blogs called it the most polite takedown they'd ever seen. A masterclass in subtle power. George wasn't just airing his thoughts, he was sending a message, and Hollywood heard it loud and clear. By the time that extended cut of the interview hit YouTube, the damage was done. Blake wasn't just seen as someone who made a mistake. She was seen as someone who climbed by copying, who tried to rebrand herself by stepping on someone else's identity. And when George finally spoke, the industry had already decided she wasn't one of them anymore. If there's one thing Blake Lively knows how to do, it's control the narrative. At least, she used to. But this time, even her best PR tricks weren't going to save her. Blake Lively didn't tweet. She didn't post cryptic Instagram stories. She didn't rant in interviews. No, Blake does something different. When things go bad, she gets glossy. So just as the heat was rising, word got out. Blake had landed a cover feature for Elle magazine. The teaser headline, "I don't regret anything." It was a classic move. Pose as misunderstood, the strong woman unfairly judged, navigating a world of impossible expectations. The photos were carefully crafted. Blake, wrapped in neutral tones, sitting in a Parisian loft, bathed in soft light. The vibe, intellectual, artistic, unbothered. And then came the quote that was supposed to flip the script. I think women are so often accused of manipulation, when really, we're just navigating a room full of expectations. It was vague. It was polished. It was meant to make her look strong. But what it did, it ignited a firestorm. Comment sections lit up. Blake Lively playing the misunderstood woman card after literally being accused of copying Amal Clooney? You can't make this up. The interview had barely been out for 24 hours when another leak hit industry chats. A casting pre-approval sheet for a major upcoming political drama listed 3 names. 2 names were marked green light. 1 was redlined. Next to Blake's name, do not proceed. Volatility risk. Note Clooney fallout unresolved. This wasn't about gossip anymore. This was career damage. Producers started quietly replacing her. Panel invites? Unanswered. And when an industry blog ran the headline, "The Blake Lively glow-up has expired," even her team went silent. While Blake was busy trying to reclaim her image, Amal Clooney didn't post quotes. She didn't run to the press. She built something far more powerful. In May 2024, Amal gave a keynote speech in Geneva, a city where she had stood many times before, not as a celebrity, but as a human rights advocate. The event, the Clooney Foundation for Justice, was hosting a panel titled Women's Visibility and Media Exploitation in the Modern Era. But the real shock? Amal's speech was called When They Borrow Your Face. The room was packed with diplomats, journalists, and activists. There were no names mentioned, no direct accusations. But as Amal spoke, images appeared behind her, black and white stills of fabricated campaigns, side-by-sides of actresses rebranding themselves as activists, and one image that stole the room's breath. Blake Lively, seated on a panel, wearing a tan pantsuit nearly identical to one Amal had worn at the UN just 6 months prior. The tension, palpable. And then Amal delivered the final blow. There's nothing more dangerous than a woman who thinks empathy is an accessory. That one line wasn't just a statement. It was a message to producers, editors, actors, and the entire industry. She didn't need to name Blake. The world already knew. That speech could have been just a moment, a classy, sharp rebuttal. But what happened next wasn't classy, it was surgical. Within 48 hours, a Hulu Originals project Blake had been developing for months was canceled. No announcement, no press, just a leaked screenshot from an internal review board. Project not proceeding. Stakeholder concerns. Reputation liability. Blake Lively wasn't canceled in a blaze of headlines. She was quietly replaced. First, her name stopped showing up in casting pitches. Her stylist paused branding negotiations. 2 major fashion magazines, they replaced her upcoming features with Amal Clooney, not for red carpet looks, not for celebrity gossip, for her humanitarian work. And then the final moment came. Amal Clooney posted one image, no caption, no tag, no quotes, just a wide shot of her walking into the UN, a folder tucked under her arm. On the Visible tab, authenticity is not branding. The post was reposted over 300,000 times. Comment sections filled up instantly, and for the first time, not a single voice defended Blake. Amal had destroyed an entire PR stunt with one photo. No shade, no noise, just presence. Black went silent. No Instagram stories, no styled coffee runs, no public comments. Her team issued nothing. 2 brand partners quietly pulled out. Her stylist canceled 3 shoots. In the end, Amal didn't have to take Blake down. The industry just needed to see the truth. And once they did, they couldn't unsee it. Blake wasn't canceled. She was replaced by the real thing. So, what really happened here? Was this just another celebrity feud inflated by social media and industry gossip? Or was it something much deeper? This wasn't about one script or one actress playing too close to the edge. This was about the difference between image and identity. Blake Lively didn't just get inspired by Amal Clooney. She tried to become her, not by learning her values, but by mimicking her presence. And in Hollywood, where image is everything, that might seem normal. But George and Amal Clooney reminded us all of something else. Image can be borrowed, but integrity, you either have it or you don't. Black thought she could elevate her career by stepping into the shoes of someone who had spent years fighting for justice on the world stage. But you can't fake experience. You can't script empathy. And when you do, the people watching, especially the ones you least expect, will notice. This wasn't about cancellation, it was about consequences. And in the halls of Hollywood, where reputations are traded like currency, Blake Lively's attempt to climb higher by borrowing someone else's story cost her everything she thought she was gaining. George Clooney didn't raise his voice. Amal didn't tweet back. They didn't play the game. They just waited. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let the truth leak itself. Was Blake just inspired? Or did she cross a line she couldn't come back from? Did George Clooney handle this like a true Hollywood power player? Or was this all just a coincidence blown out of proportion? Comment below. I'm reading every single take. And if you're as fascinated by the quiet power plays in the industry as I am, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and make sure you're here for the next deep dive. Remember, in Hollywood, it's not always about who shouts the loudest. Sometimes it's about who can stay silent and still win.